Hey nerds, it's Nathan, and I don't have a book review, but a book series review for you today, and it is. Oi, what have I told you about reading my books without asking me first? Well, he spoiled it, but it is Skullduggery Pleasant. Yes, let's go. So, here we are. This is going to be a two-part video where we will look at the first 12 out of 15 of the books that I've actually read. This is a massive series, so we're going to start with the first 6, and then the second part will be the second 6. Whoa, it's like magic! And poor editing. I love me some Skelly Boys, so I'm going to get into it. Now, the book. I'm going to start by saying this is my Harry Potter. Even though I'm an adult now, questionably, I love this series that I started in my childhood, just like most Harry Potter fans, and it has some similarities. You know, young teen meets a stranger who introduces them to a world of magic just hidden behind our own. They face the everyday challenges of teen life while also learning and eventually fighting dark forces at work that threaten their world at large. And that's about it where similarities goes. Where Harry Potter goes mental on the world building aspect, giving us immense details into the aesthetics, the laws, the cultures, and boatloads of made up words and spells and shit. Skullduggery Pleasant doesn't. Their magical communities mirror the countries they're from, and I think this gives the book a little bit more space for the characters, their development, their magic. I find their magic is just a little bit more interesting. It's more based on a continuous amount of skill than spells. And more importantly, the story, where Harry Potter follows one antagonist, Lord Voldemort, and we follow mainly Harry through his journey. Skullduggery Pleasant doesn't. It has lots and lots of storylines, lots of plot hooks that all sort of slowly crisscross and interweave, and yeah, I love it. Alright. So, don't mind me, I'm going to be holding these while we do this. We're going to start right here with numero uno. Our story begins with a young girl called Stephanie. After her world-famous horror writer uncle dies, her and the rest of her family, her parents, her other aunts and uncles, and a stranger in a fine suit, hat and scarf covering his face, attend the reading of the will. Stephanie ends up inheriting her uncle's house and the royalties to his books. She's like the only real niece in the story, or at least the only real niece that her uncle liked. So she basically got everything, which is really cool. Shortly after the reading of the will, Stephanie spends an evening in her newly inherited home where she is attacked by a stranger who says he's looking for a key. And this is where she is rescued by another stranger, the stranger in the suit. But this stranger is throwing fireballs. In the scuffle, he loses his disguise where we meet the walking, the talking skeleton. Yes, Skullduggery is a skeleton in a 3-piece suit. He's a smooth-talking, smart-mouth, wise ass who is famous for being a very powerful elemental and a stylish badass. And he's mostly famous because he's dead and he's still up and about. Upon learning her uncle was murdered and the extensive secret world of mages and sorcerers, Stephanie decides to escape her boring life and kind of join Skullduggery in investigating her uncle's death. Over the course of the adventure, Skullduggery and Stephanie uncover a greater plot for world domination. Remember, this did start out as a children's book, so go easy. By a man, this plan of world domination is by a man called Nefarian Serpine, a general of a man called Malevolent. I fuck it up every time. a powerful and sadistic tyrant from a long since past magical war. Serpine wishes to use an ancient weapon called the Scepter of the Ancients. Could have written that one better. Once thought lost, but actually found by Stephanie's uncle and stored safely within a maze hidden under his estate. He also wants to use an artifact called the Book of Names. He will use the scepter to resurrect his dark gods, known as the Faceless Ones, and use the Book of Names to enslave people into their worship. Now, names are incredibly important in this world. We all have three names. Our given name, which is the one our parents give us. Our taken name. Sorcerers use this to protect themselves and connect within themselves and their magic. And last but not least, their true name, which is the name of your soul. And the Book of Names has all the true names of everyone who has ever lived. Now, the reason that is so dangerous is when people have access to their true name, they have access to the truest, purest, most powerful form of their consciousness and their magic. But secondly, if someone else has access to your true name and you do not, they can use it against you. Think of demonology. If you know a demon's name, you have power over them. It's the same kind of concept. Throughout the story, we are introduced to amazing characters like Ghastly Bespoke, an ex-boxer turned high-end tailor, Tanith Lowe, an English sword-wielding bounty hunter badass bitch, China Sorrows, a woman as mysterious as she is freakishly beautiful. I love the naming convention in this series, giving all the characters these names that have a deeper representation of themselves, sometimes at a surface level, sometimes at a deeper level. And like, they're not just ridiculous for the sake of being ridiculous. Draco Malfoy. Let's look at Ghastly for an example. His mother was cursed, and he was born covered in horrific scars, like head to toe. He never grew hair properly, none of it, because he was just scarred and horribly deformed because his mother was cursed. Now, as he grew up, he found his magic, found his gifts, and he took his name. He took Ghastly, meaning horrific and grotesque, and Bespoke means something that is custom made of a high quality. And that's what we get. We get this through the entire series, throughout everything. I mean, because Ghastly is horrible to look at, but he himself is a tall, broad, absolute gentleman who oozes style and just that genuine nice guy charm. He's of quality. Yeah, we get this through the entire series, and I can't tell you how many times I've actually had to Google a word and learn something new and put it into my vocabulary because of how they've taken a word or taken an idea and put it into the description of their name. Stephanie learns about this concept about a third of the way through the book, if memory serves, and she then takes on the persona of Valkyrie Kane. Yes, warrior. And the idea was raising Cain, meaning raising hell, being a troublemaker, which fits her very well in both aspects. And then from the rest of the books on, she will be regarded as Valkyrie Kane. Throughout the rest of the books, we're going to discover the different types of magic, like adepts, elementals, ergokinesis, which is a type of energy manipulation, or like throwing energy. We have teleporters, sensitives, which are people with various psychic abilities, necromancers, and last but not least, neotrics. Neotrics are people that grow up with undisciplined and unfocused magic that actually mutates into something unique, strange, and often very dangerous. They can be very powerful, but they can also be basically, like, they could have no stamina with their magic. It could be exceptionally powerful, very unique, very weird, but then they don't control it, or what control they have over it is so very limited by how much effort it takes. So Neotrics are very dangerous, but very cool. I'm going to try and power through the rest of these summaries as quick as possible without making both these videos ridiculously long. Okay, here we go. We're going to go with book 2. Playing with Fire. Yeah, that's a fucking cool name. That's a cool name for a book. Alright, the second book follows along 1 year later, and we learn more about the ancient magic war as an old enemy re-emerges. Baron Vengeance. I know, that's cheesy as fuck. Still a kid's book, but I know. One of the serving generals of Malevolent. He's looking to he's looking to resurrect a monster known as the Grotesquerie. Now, the Grotesquerie is a Frankenstein-like creature made up of the flesh of their dead gods when they had a physical form here on Earth, as well as retrieve something called the armor of Lord Vile. Now, Lord Vile was another one of these generals that turned traitor at the end of the war. And I know, Lord Vile, Baron Vengeance, very cheesy, I know. We have some returning characters and some new ones throughout the book, one of them being Spring-Heeled Jack, a Jack the Ripper-like character, but he's more of a creature than a person. And also one that we'll see through the rest of the series almost, which is Billy Ray Sanguine. Think of Corinthians from The Sandman. If you haven't seen that, watch The Sandman and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We learn some secrets of the beautiful China Sorrow and her involvement with the Church of the Faceless Ones, followed by a series of really sweet magical battles and a great amount of disturbing descriptions, especially when it comes to the Grotesquerie and how it operates, being all Frankenstein-y. Our two heroes do manage to save the day, but barely. As the book wraps up, we find that the whole thing was a little bit of a convoluted ploy because the creature actually needed to die. The person who resurrected it actually wanted it to die. Because with its horrific death wail rippling through the multiverse, to act like a beacon for the Faceless Ones to follow back into our dimension. It was bait, essentially. The whole thing was bait. They thought they were just going to use it to terrorize and murder, and they kind of did. Don't get me wrong, they definitely did do that. But the whole purpose was to die, so that when it died and did its giant death wail, it essentially called back to its big, scary, fuck off monster gods of parents. This was a great sequel. There's loads of necromancy in this one, heaps of really gross, creepy shit going on. This one's great. This one's great. Our third book is named after our dark gods, the Faceless Ones. Ah, yes. We start our story with our duo investigating the murder of 4 teleporters. During their investigation, they discover one of the last natural-born teleporters left, and his name is Fletcher Wren, and we'll be seeing loads of him throughout the series. Our 2 favourite smart-ass detectives team up with a group of necromancers to discover something called an isthmus anchor. I'm sure I butchered that. ISTHMUS. Isthmus. Blah, no, I fucked it. I'm going to continue on. And in conjunction with this anchor and a teleporter, one could open up a gate to allow something from another dimension, like a faceless one, to come through. We learn where this gate will be. Oh, I lost my place. We learn where this gate will be, and that the anchor is actually the body of the Grotesquerie. Now, Skullduggery and Valkyrie must break into the Sanctuary. The Sanctuary is kind of like this world's version of the Ministry of Magic. So, from now on, when I say Sanctuary, think of the Ministry. They have to break into the Sanctuary for some reason to steal the Grotesquerie's body. I honestly cannot remember why. This book came out 13 years ago at this point. I fucking cannot remember, and I cannot find anything online that will tell me that one specific detail as to why they need to steal the body in the first place. But they do. There is some blackmail within the Sanctuary towards China about Skullduggery's death and his undead existence. She did have a hand in both, which is very interesting. A man they believe is their ally throughout this whole process, who's helping them with finding where the gate's going to be, discovering the anchor, getting the anchor. He actually betrays them, and he even betrays his own allies to the Faceless Ones as they come through the gate. Once they enter our dimension, he actually offers up their bodies to the formless, chaotic energy masses that he calls his gods, and melting their faces of their new hosts as they enter them, hence the Faceless Ones. Once they enter and take hold of a body, they lose all form of self, quite literally, by having no face. Won't go into a great amount of details, but a really epic battle ensues, and they actually use the Scepter of the Ancients from the first book to defeat the Faceless Ones and send them back through the portal. And our poor Skullduggery actually gets sucked into the void with them. There is more stuff happening, other storylines being set up for further books, but I don't want to give it away, and I don't have time, so we're going to wrap up the Faceless Ones. Our fourth book is Dark Days. Yes, beautiful. In the fourth book, Valkyrie, Ghastly, Tennant, and Fletcher have spent nearly a year searching for Skullduggery's original skull. What he had on his head was not his original skull. Mind blown. When I read that, honestly, mind fucking blown. Okay, sorry. I'm geeking out. I love me, my Skelly boy. I do. Calm. They spend basically a year searching for his original skull to use as their own isthmus anchor. I'm not even going to try anymore. As their own anchor to bring him home. During this time, Valkyrie begins learning necromancy from a character called Solomon Reith. He's a necromancer from our previous book, and he will be in a few others after this as well. Meanwhile, an old prisoner named Draylen Scarab has been released from prison after like a 400-year sentence or something like that. And he forms something he calls the Revengers Club. Yes, that is a stab at the Avengers. Has to be. He reforms the Revengers Club with his son, Billy Ray Sanguine. And other antagonists we've seen before, and they actually begin by making a small zombie army, which is fucking cool, which is pretty interesting. While the zombie army is being made, once the skull has been located, there is a trade, a double cross, an attempt to steal it back, and a subsequent arrest of the gang. And then later on, a small prison break and a whole boatload of magical shenanigans in between. And we actually eventually get to open up the portal, send Valkyrie through, and rescue Skullduggery. After a very strange and difficult reunion, the adventure continues with us learning about the necromancer's soon-to-be messiah called the Deathbringer. And the prophecy, we also learn about a prophecy about a being called Darquess, who will supposedly destroy the world. Now, this isn't just one random sensitive having this vision. Psychics all over the world have this vision. So it's like a big fucking deal. Meanwhile, the Revengers Club invade a sanctuary to steal a device known as the Desolation Engine, as well as ambush a place called the Midnight Hotel with said zombie armies from earlier. And they're doing this because they want to retrieve something called a Revenant. A Revenant is a type of relentless, restless, benevolent spirit. Oh, I got that. They use this spirit to possess a man called Ken Speckled Grouse to make him fix and replicate the engine. A daring rescue ensues with a great battle and a narrow escape from the Revengers. The bad guys actually take their second engine to use at a sporting stadium to kill tens of thousands of people as just a general fuck you, really. But this too is thwarted by none other than our teleporter, Fletcher Wren. This is like the biggest, coolest, most selfless badass thing he's done throughout the 4 books so far, and it's epic. He fucking saves the day. It's fucking epic. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the best part of the book and the real twist is actually at the end, and it's a little bit fucked up how it happens with some of the things that unfold, but Ireland is going to need a new sanctuary. Yeah. So, we've reached the 5th book, Mortal Coil. And this shit is getting complicated with all the storylines, and there are multiple prophecies and new and returning characters, loads of which I have left out for timing purposes. But, you know, we're getting there. Skullduggery and Valkyrie are on the hunt for Davina Ma, the person responsible for the destruction of the Irish sanctuary. Got that. As is a Russian assassin called Tesseract, whose magic shatters bones. We're going to see several really hectic battles with Tesseract throughout this book, and he is savage. Fucking savage. His power shatters people's bones into splinters, like thin splinters. They practically explode. He is ruthless. Some really great fight scenes in this book with Tesseract and a few other people, actually. Also, within the first part of the book, Valkyrie speaks to a banshee to gain information on how to go about sealing her true name so others cannot use it against her. Interesting. Solomon Reith, our resident necromancer of this series so far, captures a person called Finbar in order to force a remnant into him and then receive information that he wants about Valkyrie being his Deathbringer, being his necromantic messiah. While he was able to give the information he thought to be valuable to the necromancer community about their so-called messiah, the remnant actually realizes the importance of Valkyrie becoming Dark Quest, yes, the end of the world being, and gives the remnant a new purpose. It wants to go out, gather all the other remnants, and then gain control of Dark Quest, or it's still at this point, Valkyrie. The remnant breaks free from Reith and then escapes in search of the Midnight Hotel, which we heard about earlier, and possesses Anton Shutter. Anton Shutter will become very big in the next half of the series, but he is actually the owner of the Midnight Hotel, and once possessed, he actually frees all the remnants trapped there. Midway through the book, Valkyrie finds a creature that calls itself Dr. Nee, a elongated, spindly, creepy-looking thing, and makes a deal with it to seal her true name away inside of herself. The creature then tries to double-cross her because it loves to experiment on people, and it actually wants to experiment on her. But with some quick thinking and a little bit of necromancy, she escapes, and she eventually tells Skullduggery the truth of her name and her true name. To deal with the immense threat of thousands of possessed mortals and sorcerers, the gang put together a plan to activate a giant soul catcher. Whilst trying to find the keys to activate it and herd all the possessed souls towards the soul catcher, there are several double crosses, as we learn almost all of our main characters are or become possessed by remnants at some point during this massive setup. Valkyrie is captured and possessed by a revenant and is turned into yes, Darquesse. She's turned into Darquesse, and she actually kills dozens of people. But she is stopped by our good old Skelly boy Skullduggery, who convinces her to destroy the remnant inside of her, and she actually does. She manages to basically burn out the soul that's possessed her. The soul catcher is activated, and all but one of the remnants are captured. The one that gets away being still inside our lovely Tanith Lowe, who actually manages to really harm Valkyrie before escaping. At the end of the book, a new sanctuary has been established with a new council of elders, with our wonderful Ghastly Bespoke taking one of the roles as an elder. Tanith, whose possession is complete, and now she and the remnant are one, visit and reveal to Valkyrie that she is planning on leading her towards being Darquesse. The remnant inside of her still wants this to come true. We see one last encounter with Tesseract, but he is mortally wounded by Lord Vile, our missing general of Malevolent. Where the fuck did he come from? Where was he this entire time? I don't know. Let's find out. Deathbringer! Book 6 races right into the plot with a young woman, Melancholia, I love that name, restrained and going through her surge. The surge is like a coming of age magical event where your magic kind of levels up but also locks in place into a particular discipline, like I was talking about earlier. Like children, well, I should say people, once they first learn their magic, to about the age of like around 2021, have a great amount of flexibility with their magic. You can learn multiple disciplines at one time, but you will eventually aim towards something that your body is just naturally better at. It's like people with athletics and music and art and anything, math even, like the more you do it, the better you get at it. And if you have a natural affinity towards it, you're probably going to aim that way. And it's the same with magic in this world. It's not hocus pocus, blah. It's you do what you're good at, and eventually, once you hit that 2021 mark, you go through a surge, and your magic kind of opens up and powers up. But it will lock into a particular discipline. It will lock into what you're best at, or what you've trained the most into. Moving on. Sorry, that needed to be explained, but moving on. She's restrained on a table, going through her surge, and there's some kind of binding ritual actually being performed on her. And when we see her mentor, Vandermeer Craven, openly telling her soon she will be strong enough to be the Deathbringer. He believes she is the Messiah. We see how heroes slash smartass detectives are doing what they do best, solving crimes, following leads, kicking ass, chewing gum, all that. One of the leads actually lead to a woman called Bernadette Maguire. On arriving at her home, our duo find her murdered, with a bold man actually trying to escape, and they confront him, but he manages to get away by dropping a box containing the unbeatable Jitter Girls to distract them. The Jitter Girls are essentially like the Ring, but in triplet. And instead of moving like really fast, they skitter and flicker and like do all that real mad creepy Annabelle shit. It's amazing. Skullduggery and Valkyrie desperately try and fight these Jitter Girls, but they are on a whole nother level until one of them manages to like phase her hand through through Valkyrie's head, I should say, and into her brain, and accidentally unleashes Darquesse, her alter ego, who attacks the Jitter Girls and actually forces them to retreat back into their little box of nightmares. We see a few more run-ins with this hairless assailant through as the story continues. There is even an epic car chase, and because of it, the introduction of warlocks. Because of it, warlocks are really cool because warlocks gain their powers or gain greater power by eating other sorcerers. During this time, there is an internal struggle within the necromancers community as the push to declare Melancholia the Deathbringer over Valkyrie, and they decide this with a demonstration of her power. Yeah. Also, while this is happening, we find China Sorrows in a Church of the Faceless One, once again being blackmailed about her secrets of Skullduggery's death and the death of his family and her involvement with the Faceless Ones originally, back in the original war. She just gets so much hate, this poor woman. China is then subsequently plotting her blackmailer's murder. Later on, she even enlists the help of a man named Jaron Gallows to help her in her quest to actually destroy the church as a whole. She doesn't want it. Nobody wants it, but she doesn't want it more than anybody else because they know all her secrets. About midway through the book, sorry. About midway through the book, Melancholia and Valkyrie have their own 1v1, and Valkyrie is practically left for dead, as Melancholia's shadow magic is now on a level to which no one has ever seen before. An official warrant of arrest is actually placed on Melancholia by the Sanctuary to turn herself in due to the fears of what she may do to the general public around her. Valkyrie and Skullduggery, aided by many cleavers and agents of the Sanctuary, prepare to raid the temple to arrest Melancholia, but then they get word of their bold assailant at the airport, thinking he's trying to skip town. They catch him at the airport, and after some very questionable interrogation methods, learn that he isn't leaving, but he's actually meeting dozens of powerful necromancers from around the world that have come here to defend their temple, while Melancholia begins something called the Passage. Our duo race back to the temple to try and find and arrest Melancholia. Reith, our resident necro within the book, actually informs them what the Passage truly means, which is pretty next level, and I don't want to ruin it, so I'll just leave it for the moment. But the Passage is next level. During the raid, the two are actually knocked out and captured. A necro high priest, Aaron Tenebrae, informs them that he is actually partially responsible for Skullduggery's current existence as a skeleton, as a living dead man. And he also reveals that Skullduggery is actually Lord Vile? What the fucking dicks? Whoa. Fucking... That actually does. That actually blows your fucking mind when you read the books. Tenebrae doesn't believe Melancholia is the Deathbringer, but in trying to stop her, he is easily slaughtered. She didn't even try. She just cuts him in half. It's amazing. Our duo try and escape the temple and run into Melancholia, unable to defeat her. Skullduggery is actually forced to use and unleash Lord Vile by donning his shadow armor. He easily manages to beat her and is just about to kill her when other necromancers arrive, forcing Vile's armor to turn back into regular good old Skullduggery. In the last section of the book, things really amp up to a whole nother level. A banquet ball for the magical takes place and is rudely interrupted by, first of all, a group of mercenaries sent there as a distraction by somebody. And then secondly, a group of necromancers and Melancholia. They begin by draining everyone of their life force, which is next level. An epic battle ensues with Skullduggery, Valkyrie, and Melancholia. Melancholia sucks the life force out of Skullduggery, and in a last-ditch effort, causes him to don Lord Vile's armor once more, and his alter ego take over. Vile doesn't discriminate though, attacking both of the girls, and the two of them have to end up working together not to die at the hands of Vile. In a very last-ditch effort, Melancholia steals Valkyrie's life force to kind of hit that panic button to release Dark Quest. Dark Quest and Lord Vile start fighting all over Ireland, which involved both getting severely injured by crashing through streets and both getting smashed through buildings, and also includes fighting on Liffey Bridge, which is kind of cool if you know what Liffey Bridge is. Eventually, the two begin talking after a long period of fighting, especially after Lord Vile is seeing Darquesse slowly get stronger and stronger the longer she's in control of Valkyrie's body. He changes back after seeing his imminent defeat, and as he returns to being his normal Skullduggery form, he is able to talk Darquesse down and allow Valkyrie to take back control of herself. This is an intense book. This is so, like, if you want to look at the differences between the books, this is a big ass book. So, please stay tuned for part 2 of the Skullduggery Pleasant series summary and review. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so sorry. Alright, I'll see you in the next video.